She had a body that reached out and slapped my face like a 5-pound ham hock tossed from a speeding truck. Lawrence Person, Austin, Texas. This is my audiobook review. I'm your host, Jacob Shymanski. That was the grand prize winning entry to the very last Bulwer-Lytton Fiction Writing Contest, which is one of the weirdest writing competitions I've ever heard of. It basically celebrates the art of purposeful bad writing. I'll explain the rules in a second and how it works. But first, let me bring in Ramya Amuthan, producer Ramya Amuthan. We've talked about this on the show before, but the competition's coming to an end, unfortunately. But
permanently.
There is a huge archive. Yeah, permanently. There's a huge archive that will live on in infamy. And I think we should go through and read a bunch of these and kind of dumb things down on this program, because this really draws the line or blurs the line between stupidity and genius. And I don't know which it is.
I think it's more genius than it is stupidity. Some of this bad writing is actually quite good. Definitely entertaining, definitely funny. So, and you've been a fan for how long now?
A couple years now, but the first time I discovered it, I spent all night going through these entries. So they have a website, the Bulwer-Lytton Writing Contest, and on that website they have their archive. It can go through year by year of all the entries. So essentially the rules for the contest is they pretty much have people send in submissions for what you need to do is write the opening sentence to a non-existent book. The way that they put it is the Bulwer-Lytton Fiction Contest challenges entrants to compose opening sentences to the worst of all possible novels. And it's pretty open-ended, just a relatively short sentence. Sometimes it's kind of two, but they tend to be super long run-on sentences. And it's meant to evoke the idea that you just cracked open a book that's about to be terrible.
Yeah, and run-on sentences, but so cleverly done. Like kind of all the rules you can follow or all the cringe ways to write a sentence, but do it anyway. They kind of utilize all that throughout. You'll hear it.
Yeah, like the quote I read off the top is a pretty good example, right?
That's a good one, yeah.
She had a body that reached out and slapped my face like a 5-pound ham hock tossed from a speeding truck. I don't think I want something to slap me like a 5-pound ham hock. That sounds slimy and painful and unsanitary. And that's not the comparison that I would give to a woman with a nice body, of which I'm supposed to be attracted to.
But like, ew, you know?
It's just a gross image. Like, I don't think the author intended that.
It was meant to be.
But the irony is, in this context, for the Bulwer-Lytton contest, like, it was perfectly intentional to give that, like, ew reaction. So that was the grand winner of the 2024 competition, which means it was the very last grand winner, because this has been going on since 1983. But the very last one happened last year, unfortunately. Every year has a bunch of categories, and we've got a bunch of submissions from 2024, and I also went and curated through a bunch of the answers from previous years, some of my favorites. And do you want to read the first one? What do we have?
We'll get to as many as we can. Yes, so is this a category, the Grand Pengendrum's Special Award? Or is that another, like, a runner-up kind of thing? Who knows?
I actually tried to look for it. I didn't understand. There's a lot of, like, inside jokes to this contest.
Yes, yeah. The whole contest.
It's very popular.
You got to kind of go through the site and break it down. But anyways, we're just doing our due diligence and giving you the submissions of 2024. So here's the one that won that award. Mrs. Higgins' body was found in the pantry, bludgeoned with a potato ricer and lying atop a 50-pound sack of Yukon Golds, her favorite for making gnocchi, though some people consider them too moist for this purpose. This one was great.
Like, why is it relevant? Why is it relevant that the potato flour?
It's all relevant. It's all relevant. Side note, don't use this one for gnocchi. This one was from Charles Phillips from West Trenton, New Jersey.
Here's the winner from the adventure category. As Niels Nordstrand struggled mightily to stay afloat, while grimly watching from a distance, the Norwegian oil tanker he captained slowly sank into the treacherously dark and stormy seas of Raminsk. He gave no thought to whether the Giants had any chance at a pennant win.
That's a good one.
That was hard to read, like grammatically. It's like it doesn't make any sense, but also the fact that he's wondering about a pennant win, which I had to look it up, is a baseball term for like
Oh.
winning a championship, which
Oh,
is like
you went
a
deep.
Norwegian oil tanker captain. Why is like a Norwegian dude watching American baseball? That seems unlikely.
Maybe because it was an American who wrote it. I don't know.
So then you wonder if this is like the opening line of a book.
Yes.
Is he like so
Oh,
what
these are
led to him
questions.
crashing and sinking an oil tanker?
This is actually such a good point because we got to keep reminding ourselves these are the first sentences to the worst book ever. So all these questions shall be answered if you kept reading.
I picture this quote or this opening line kind of as like a flashback, like when a book starts at the end type thing. That's the
Yeah.
vibe that I get. Very ominous. But also, did his San Francisco Giants, win the pennant?
You actually went deep though. Okay, so the category, we're going to continue on with some dishonorable mentions. So they always put up a few with each
In the
category.
adventure category still.
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay, so this one is. It had seemed a good idea at the time, the first night of my 2-week all-inclusive vacation spent with an affable stranger in a topless bar, oiled by an excess of Corona Extra and tequila shots. But now, in fancy dress, holding a red cape under a pitiless noonday sun while 1,000 pounds of snorting horned beefsteak eyed me malevolently, hoofing a hole in the dirt, the packed spectators allaying for all their worth, I, a junior sales rep in kitchen utensils from Milwaukee, wasn't so sure. David Hines from Brahma, Sweden. Yo, this one was good. This
That's a
one was a
classic
great,
run-on sentence. That's
but
a
also
lesson
like
on rap.
all this context in parentheses was amazing. Like she. Anyway, gave us like the night before, the morning of, the state of mind, all the sensations and the sensory
We got the
experience.
who, the what,
Yeah.
where, the
Yep.
why, the when, all in one sentence.
Great.
Forget about the book. I already know everything I need to know. So also while we're doing this, Ramya and I are reading these using our screen readers because we're
Yeah,
both blind and low vision, and this is hard to read. The grammar,
absolutely.
these run-on sentences. So while this whole contest is kind of dumbing things down a bit, this is actually really friggin'
This
hard.
is a lot of work
It's a
for
good
us. All
challenge,
right.
yo. Please,
You're welcome.
yeah, please like and subscribe to the video. Here's the next one from the dishonorable mentions of the adventures category for 2024. However unlikely an event, Lucy's flight had made a water landing, and as she clutched her seat, which was usable as a flotation device, she waited patiently for the lifeboats to pick up first of the plutonium class members, active service personnel, parents traveling with small children, and those passengers with special needs.
I loved it. That's a good one. By the way, this one's from Sam in London, England, right?
Yes.
Or no, yeah, maybe. Anyways, I might have moved on, but there's like a whole host of submissions from all over the world for this contest, which I didn't think so. I thought it was. I mean, it's predominantly the U.S.
They get upwards of like tens of thousands of submissions every year. Well, had.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. Where do you want to go now?
You choose. Up to you.
Keep going down this one.
Whichever one you appreciated.
Okay, let's go through. Actually, this is another one from Joel Phillips. There's a couple submissions from him, so we'll read one more from the adventures category. The grappling hook caught, and Dirk hoisted himself hand over hand to the balcony, where, to his surprise, stood Dr. Darpa, a banana sandwich in one hand and the Ace Smith and bodyguard in MP3. Oh, no, I can't do this one. Wait. MNP3 380. Can you do that one?
That's a gun here. I'll spot you.
Okay, you do it. Go.
To the balcony where, to his surprise, stood Dr. Darpa, a banana sandwich in one hand and a Smith and Wesson bodyguard MP3 80 in the other. A pistol more suited to the delicate hands of a femme fatale, he thought, though he kept this observation to himself.
Impressive, Jacob. You lost me at whatever the heck that gun was. But anyway, that was a good sentence, though.
It drives me nuts when authors go into like the make and models of things for no good reason. They
I
do this with
know.
cars all the time, where I couldn't care less, and I don't know if people really care about that, or like specific guns. And not only like they don't just go like, oh, he was holding a large assault rifle. They'd be like, he was holding a Russian-made AK-47 with a black chrome. Like, I don't care.
But for the nerds, though, for the nerds, like historical fiction. No, really?
Unless it's like relevant, unless
I guess
a specific gun
gotta
comes
be
back.
relevant.
It has to be
but I
relevant.
feel like that's subjective. Want to move to crime?
No. Here's another adventure.
One more? Okay.
One more. He was an old man who fished alone in a skiff in the Gulf Stream, and he had gone 84 days now without catching a fish. But his fish tend to live in the sea rather than his skiff. He really only had himself to blame.
Nice.
This one is a parody of The Old Man by Ernest Hemingway, obviously. And I'm pretty sure in that book, it's 83 days without cutting a fish. And he says 84 for some reason.
Oh, intentional. Okay.
A bit of a smart-ass move. A bit of a smart-ass move to say, whoa, there's no fish in the boat. Obviously, you wouldn't catch a fish in the boat. Yeah, okay.
There's a whole smart-ass category coming up, so we have to get to that one.
Yes.
The dark and stormy.
But yeah, let's move on to crime.
Okay. Crime and detective. This is the winner from 2024. She was poured into the red latex dress like Jell-O poured into a balloon, almost bursting at the seams, and her zaptic shape was awesome to behold, but I knew from the look on her face and the .45 she held pointing at me that this was no standard client of my detective agency, but a new collection agency tactic to get me to pay my long overdue phone bill. Jack Harnley from Florida.
Almost bursting at the seams, and her Zoftic.
Jell-O poured into a balloon.
Zoftic, I had to look it up too. It means it's like an old-timey way of saying like, voluptuous, like round and full.
Yeah.
And these are some of my favorite entries. Is like the really gross romance ones. There's a lot of like descriptions of bodies that are very funny.
And then like ironic twists and turns in the sentence.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, this one's a bit galaxy brained here. It's going to be hard to read, though. This is a dishonorable mention from the 2024 crime category. Magnus was in a tough spot. The Icelandic police was pressing him to cough up the names of the top 3 capos in the main cities in which the mafia operated. Reykjavik, and it's 3 Icelandic cities. I can't read these names. Threatening to lock him away for life if he didn't. But he knew that if he ratted out the Reykjavik or the Akrik mob, he knew that the mob would kill him for sure. Instead, he just gave him the middle finger.
That was a good one, but it's like better written. How do you say it?
Yeah, because you see these ridiculously like spelled names.
Yes, it's better written than said, right? Yeah. Okay, here's another one from where are we? Crime?
Still good.
I love this one.
Yeah.
This is a good one. Okay, this is another dishonorable mention from 2024. That sweltering Friday evening, she not so much walked, but slithered into my shabby strip mall PI office, showing off all her curves. And I knew then I was in a weekend of trouble because Dave's Reptile Emporium next door, from which the bald python had escaped, was closed until Monday morning. I love that.
I love that. So good because it's kind of like pointing out to a twist in the story right away. So there's a python next door that escaped, but this lady slithered into the PI office. Go figure.
It's so good. It's just like a regular dude in a PI office.
It's kind of genius. Here's another one from the crime category. A dishonorable mention for crime in 2024. Staring unblinkingly into the teary eyes of yet another dame looking at me to solve all her problems. I sighed, scratched my whiskers, stuck my hand leg in the air, and bent my spine at a 45-degree angle to reach down and lick my butthole clean, then donned my fedora. Taco, cat detective, was officially on the case.
This one was so funny.
I want to read that book.
Yeah, no, I don't. I've had enough of it. Gross.
It's just a gross image. That the
It
main
is.
character would just casually lick his butthole.
Also, I feel like it's a bit of a misrepresentation of Cat, at least like personality wise, you know?
Because they wouldn't willingly want to do anything.
No,
Eh.
no, this feels a bit a personality for the type of
Wow,
cats.
what would you know? Bad writing in the Bulwer-Lytton contest.
No, I know, right? Terrible.
Fantasy?
All
Let's
right.
do fantasy horror.
Is it fantasy?
Yeah,
I thought we
fantasy
were at
horror.
Dark and Stormy.
Uh,
I'm gonna skip the category. Okay, you go through fantasy.
okay, here's the next one. This is the winner of the fantasy and horror. These ones are always filled with fake fantasy names that are like purposely like just ludicrous. It's even worse
Mm.
than Icelandic. Sir Arthur Pendragon, High King of the Britons, son of King Uther Pendragon, nephew of King Maurilius Ambrosius, who was in turn the son of a long list of people who weren't kings and thus don't matter, only slept with his sister once. But boy, did it come back to bite him in the ass.
Yo. Oh, that's a good one. Did you read the fantasy from previous years? Like the winners of fantasy?
Yes, yeah, I read quite a few of those.
Okay, okay. I would assume you'd spend a lot of time in the fantasy category. Here's a dishonorable mention, the only one I'm going to read from this category. Harry Potter was a happy 11-year-old wizard who lived with two kind and supportive parents in Godric's Hollow because his parents hadn't been wimps and they had used the killing curse on Voldemort as soon as he stuck his big noseless face in their house.
Fair point. Fair point. Like,
Fair
I don't know if
point.
they knew the killing curse, but it's fair point.
I mean, yeah. Ray Smith from Crowley, Texas.
It's
Yeah.
noseless face.
And also they used Voldemort. Like, not just the Dark Lord or whatever. He who must not be named. There you go. Nobody was a wimp in that one.
Moving on to the historical fiction section. This is the winner from 2024 in that category. On an otherwise fine spring morning, Helga Tomtid-Tans learned in an exceptionally hard way that whatever they might have told you in hospitality school up in Cologne as a serving wench in Mainz's finest inn in 451 AD, you don't greet a battled, weary, and obviously stressed general fresh from crossing the Carpathians. Fresh from crossing the Carpathians. Oh, Carpathians. Oh, that's a mountain chain. Fresh from crossing the Carpathians at the cost of 10,000 men with an overly cheery, "Hi, hun." Yeah, I could have read that one better.
We got it, though. We got it.
We got through.
We got through.
I like how she just calls herself a serving wench.
Yeah. Also, with a lot of the ones from the historical fiction category, there's just so much going on in the sentence. Like, are there certain categories that feel more than others? More words, more stuff going on?
Historical fiction, you kind of have to establish more. Like time and setting, there's a lot more placed on that. All these entries, a lot of them have a lot of like, what the hell did I just read? Type into it afterwards. Like, it's the type of thing you kind of have to read multiple times to really understand. Okay, I have a good one from romance. Here we go.
Okay.
If broken hearts were made of simple syrup and shattered dreams were made from white rum, and agony and despair came from 3/4 ounce of lime juice, freshly squeezed, and 3 mint leaves respectively, then Mary Lou just served up a mojito cocktail straight from the 9th circle of hell when she told Ricky the baby wasn't his.
What?
Serving up a mojito of despair. This just has such try-hard vibes. Yeah.
Oh, that sounded like a really good mojito until the other shoe dropped. Oh, snap. Okay, this is like the first time I'm hearing that one. So, wow. Yep. So they have a category called dark and stormy. And this is like a big inspirational one because the inspiration behind this is the original submission, which is it was a dark and stormy night. The rain fell in torrents, except at occasional intervals when it was checked by the violent gust of wind which swept up the streets. For it is in London that our scene lies, rattling along the housetops and fiercely agitating the scanty flame of the lamps
Good
that
lord.
struggled against the darkness. And this was from Edward Bulwer-Lytton and Paul Clifford. So the people who created this contest, I guess. And the winner from this dark and stormy category for 2024 wrote, "It was a dark and stormy night, or more specifically, a Tuesday afternoon in Ireland." That's it. That's a good.
See,
That's
there's
an
a lot of
example of a
insight.
non-run-on sentence.
Yeah, it's very, very
Submission.
actually. I was like, wait, that's it? There's no
Yes.
more? But yeah, it
Yeah.
was a dark and
That's
stormy
so
night,
good.
except it was actually in
Oh,
Ireland.
yeah.
Maybe the weather's a little better in Ireland than England.
Probably.
Here's one. Here's actually the grand winner from 2023. So I went to the
Hmm.
archives. To me, it kind of sounds like a romance one.
Okay.
So listen to this. She was a beautiful woman. More specifically, she was the kind of beautiful woman who had an hour-long skincare routine that made her look either ethereal or like a glazed donut, depending on how attracted you were to her. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder. Some people look ethereal with a glow, and others look like a glazed donut.
A glazed donut.
That
Disrespect.
shine, you know?
Disrespect. Did you just say everything that shines isn't gold? What did you say?
You know, it's like a donut kind of shines. It has a glow.
Oh, okay. Any more from the past years you want to highlight?
This one was also from 2023. It was a sunny day in Los Angeles, hot and bright, and I was in my office playing mahjong against myself and losing when she walked in, 120 pounds of dynamite, a blonde
Oof.
with legs that began at her ankles and ended in trouble.
Okay. That was definitely romance.
120 pounds of dynamite. Why did you have to bring up a woman's weight like that?
I don't know. But dynamite kind of, brought it up a notch.
Wait. I have some more here. Hold on.
Okay.
Okay. Here we go. Here's a romance entry from 2018 that I absolutely loved. Phoebe sighed happily as she read the text from Mark, asking her to be friends with benefits, as she thought maybe, just maybe, she would finally get that 401k and dental insurance.
Girl, yeah. It's so sad, though, that it was so basic and it was friends with benefits.
Here's one from 2018, the fantasy category. After years of Dame Gothel's tyranny, Rapunzel was only seconds from freedom until, with an agonized scream, the prince plunged to his death in the thorns below, grasping a handful of detached blonde strands, the golden steer having been irreparably weakened by the deficiency of vitamins B3, B6, and B7 in his love's new celiac-friendly diet.
People really go ham on these.
And Ramya, this is one of my favorites. This was from the romance category back in 2011. As the dark and mysterious stranger approached, Angela bit her lip anxiously, hoping with every nerve, cell, and fiber of her being, that this would be the one man who would understand, who would take her away from all of this, and who would not just squeeze her boob and make a long, loud honking noise, as all the others had.
Wow. I think we're finding a theme for romance, huh?
Do girls not like that? Do women not like
boys who need to step it up, okay?
See, romance is making it way too hard nowadays because women have incredibly high expectations. Like, suddenly they don't like getting their boobs honked. I don't understand.
Suddenly.
I don't
Also,
understand.
let's find out if it were women or men who actually wrote these sentences. That would give us some more insight.
Rams, I think that's enough. I think we've
given people plenty.
Guys, the archive is amazing. Look up the Bulwer-Lytton Contest. You'll find their archive online. It's nice and accessible with the screen reader and everything like that. It's actually a total blast. They've actually published a few books with some of these entries as well. You can also find those too. Rams, this was awesome.
It was fun.
Here's a book. It Must Be Beautiful to Be Finished, a memoir of my body by Kate Gies. We have Ramya Amuthan here, producer Ramya Amuthan. Rams, review this book, please.
The author is from Toronto, so this feels very local for a read. The book was released in February of 2025, very recently, and it is one of the most raw memoirs I have read probably ever. Also, very, very short for a memoir. It's more like a diary, I'll explain later. But it is so poetic, mostly because it is written as poetry, beautifully written, and she turns everything into poetry. She turns pain into poetry. She turns child memories into poetry. She turns medically's gibberish into everyday prose that we're all kind of understanding. She reminds us what it's like to be a kid again, and this felt really important throughout the book. There's like ease and flow. There's all these gists of remembering what it's like to ride a bike, to scrape your knee when you fall in the concrete, remember what it's like to have imaginary friends and then that being shattered from you, and remembering what it's like to have real friends that grow apart as we get older, sometimes into mean people, sometimes we're the mean people. There's a lot here. So the one thing that I haven't mentioned thus far is that Kate Gies doesn't have a right ear. Then at some point she has an ear, but it's disformed and it's disgusting. So she's a normal kid with normal kid problems, but she's reminded, and we're reminded as the listener, that she's not. She's a kid with a disability. She had 14 surgeries over a decade of her life, from the ages of 4 all the way to the age of 13. And this was to attempt to construct an outer ear. Most of these surgeries resulted in complications, in lasting damage, in ugly ear. And speaking of complications, that's another big part of this memoir. It's the discussion around her relationships with the doctors. They keep promising this kid an ear, but they're not delivering. So she hates them. She's scared of them. She doesn't know what keeps going on when she's being put to sleep. She wakes up with what's supposed to be an ear, but it's not. It's gross. So there's a lot. They're not giving her an ear. The book is written, like I said, through a series of poetic vignettes, how her body was scrutinized, pathologized, and subjected to medical interventions aimed at making her appear whole, which never ends up happening, Jacob. And we hear about how it affects her as an adult through dating life, through sex life, through friendships, through what her family experiences. And I guess the reason why this book stays with me for months, and I'm sure forever on, is because she doesn't really tell us any of this. It really does feel like I stumbled into finding her diary, read it, and now I'm just sitting with the discomforts and the pain and the sorrows and the complications that she's written about, that we can either relate to or feel very deeply for.
It takes a lot for a memoir to break through the noise, and any publisher would tell you that. And it seems like this one, especially because it has that diary aspect to it.
Yes.
I think, to me, like, as someone who hasn't read it, that's the most intriguing thing that would
Mm-hmm.
make me want to pick it up. How would you rate this one?
5 out of 5, 10 out of 10.
Okay, so that's a 10 out of 10 for It Must Be Beautiful to Be Finished, a memoir of my body by Kate Gies. Ramya, thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's all the time we have for today's edition of AMI Audiobook Review. Today I was with Ramya Amuthan. AMI Audiobook Review airs weekends at 1 p.m. Eastern on AMI Audio on weekends and repeats every 6 hours. You can also find it on all the big podcasting platforms and on YouTube. You can subscribe to our channel while you're there. You can email us feedback at audiobookreview@ami.ca. That's audiobookreview@ami.ca. You can also follow us on Instagram at AMI Audiobook Review. That's at AMI Audiobook Review for our Instagram handle. That's all the time we have. I'm Jacob Shymanski. Have a good one.